And we're live. All right. We're going to look at oil first thing here this morning. Button up against those highs. That probably is going to give us some resistance simply because the nobody wants it to go up high except for people who profit greatly from oil prices being nice and high, like Iran. And it would be good for Canada if they could get their shit together and actually have. Did you know? Did you know? I didn't know this. Wayne actually shared this with me that there was a question in Parliament asking how much by percentage how much of Canada's natural resources are owned by China, and the response was directly or indirectly. Indirectly, all of them.
Oh my God.
Indirectly, all of them. There is not a single natural resource in Canada that is of the people now. They are all of them being extracted by either directly or indirectly by China. Which makes sense why Carney went to China with his entourage of the Ministry of Finance. Did you know what they did while they were there? Oh, they signed on an economic agreement that China is now dictating the monetary policies of Canada. So they're in charge of the currency now. All we'd have to do, and I'm, live on YouTube already, and I know we're not really getting into the charts for me to get this ranty, but constitutional conventions puts an end to that. And you see these wonderful oil prices, Alberta? Do you want to have a piece of that? Okay, separation is not the answer because you're going from the frying pan into the fire with the path you guys have chosen. Constitutional conventions create a heritage trust. The heritage trust gets 25, make, I don't know, come up with a number. But if you offered 25% royalties paid back to the people, you'd never have a pothole again, ever. That's all you'd have to do. These oil prices are going to become crippling. Do you know why China did that? Do you know why China did that? Why China has been working on that for decades? Because the Asian markets don't produce oil. We've been talking about this, right? The Nike market, the Nike, we're watching this one carefully. Why? Because the Asian markets, they don't have oil. So when oil goes up, it really messes up Asia's markets. And that's unsustainable, but it's okay now because China saved the day by the consent of the governed.
I am surprised that the U.S. has not paid closer attention to the sale of Canadian resources to China. That is that's illuminating.
I think China has something like 25% of the real estate in America as well. And the reason why? Because America had to buy the bonds back. Remember, bonds are guaranteed investments. Yeah. China's in charge now. So it's a good thing. It's a good thing, though, that Canada has so many resources because otherwise China would have made a really big mistake, right? That would have been a really dumb monetary policy to take on, or a foreign relation to take on. But boy, they lucked out because Alberta isn't doing anything to stop that either. Even with all the whole separation thing, they're doing absolutely nothing. They are accomplishing nothing.
Oh, they're
Alrighty.
accomplishing a lot. They're distracting the people from what is really important.
Yes, that's true. That's true. They are doing a great job of that. And technically, they are accomplishing a lot for China, which, of course, was the intent. Amazon stocks still bouncing off of those this pivot point right now. Oracle dribbling like dribbling like a basketball. Google looking like it's going to try out that trend line again. Palantir maintaining its course from the beginning of the week. Nvidia looking weak. Japanese yen, it's been basically consolidating, but you can see it's ever so slightly crawling upwards, eh? Like technically consolidation in this realm here, but it just creeping upwards and upwards and upwards and upwards. Once it gets above there, it's not going to have much resistance. In fact, I don't think there's any resistance going up to the all-time high. Yeah, none. So that all-time high will be next. Probably blast over top of it, come back to find the top side of that as support. The latest prediction that I saw coming from just Dario was $300 or 300 yen per dollar. So that's 159 right now. 300, that's almost double. Because it just doesn't have the Japanese yen, they don't have what it takes to withstand this. The price of oil. They can't do it. From where we are right now, all-time high has no resistance. Yeah, there might be one. Yeah, if they're lucky, there might be resistance here. Resistance 5 and resistance 4. So, yeah, that's just where we're at. Let's go to the 4-hour chart here as we check out the other markets. US 30. It's been bumping up against this for a while. That might be a good sign for it. Non-farm payroll came out this last week rather, and it was encouraging. In fact, more jobs, and non-farm payroll is a report that comes out at the beginning of every month. I think or maybe it's the second Tuesday or something like that. No, I don't know. Anyway, the non-farm payroll came out and it was more than double what they expected. They expected it to go up, but it more than doubled. So that is incredibly encouraging for the American economy. Foreign investment likes to see it when employment goes up more than expected. So we'll see how that, it's never a movement that you see on the charts. It's something that you see, as a trend occurs across time. Usually you see that play out over a period of a month or two. Silver prices still consolidating, building that energy up. It's going to be a tight squeeze. Gold, it's been very tight price action here ever since last week. Gold silver ratio still creating higher lows. The highs recently, since 26th of March, they have not been going higher. And so technically, we are in a strict consolidation. Here's the consolidation range. Right down the middle. That's where we're at. Bitcoin dominance pulled a little back there at the end of the day. We're now tucked back underneath that trend line. Look at how I drew this. I don't know when I drew that, but it was before it went up to there. Bitcoin prices. We hit that high there yesterday, pulled a little bit back, but already seeming to find some support. Resting here around that $68,000 level. Total market cap without Bitcoin and Ethereum. This would be an index of, if we had an index, of all the altcoins. This would be it. Sitting right now at 696 billion. So think about that for a second. Bitcoin and Ethereum together, let's go check that out. So Bitcoin's market capitalization is $1.3 trillion. Ethereum bumps it up over top of the 1.6 trillion. The two of them put together, 1.6 trillion. The rest of crypto? About half of that. Digital gold, digital silver. And everybody in the crypto space, that's pretty much everybody here, minus Cardano. And Cardano, they're quite a ways down the line with only $8 billion market cap. So when that's a lot of money. $8 billion. I'd pack. I know what to do with it, but I mean, I'll have leftovers, right? 8 billion, 8.7 specifically. But here's the thing. Bitcoin and Ethereum dwarf that by many factors. And all of the altcoins, other than Bitcoin and Ethereum, is only 696 billion. So this market capitalization for all of the altcoins, this is what we're waiting for to see go up, because that will indicate alt season. Last time it happened, we went from a low, a double low, by the way. See the two lows? We went from that low to an impulse of 34x. That means, on average, the altcoins added 34x to their bottom line. What do? We get out the numbers. Fibonacci. That's the impulse, the full impulse. Where does that take us? Well, if the alts go up to 1.88 trillion, that will probably have some resistance. But that's level one. 1.88 trillion. That's 173%. But that's just the first impulse. Remember, we have other movements going on, right? This, you can see there was a little bit of a pull there, but this trend lasted a long ways. So this extension going up to 1.85 trillion, that would be if we're just measuring the technical analysis, right? We all know what this time represents. This time represents a transference of equity, a massive shift of forms of money. That this is more likely. In fact, this would be conservative simply because when this happened, the amount of companies that were in crypto, very tiny. You're looking at maybe 3,500 different tokens that were part of that. Today, there's over 7,000. And yes, they've all garnered way more attention. So when we look at the money coming in, let's just say, for instance, it goes 30x from the low, right? I don't think we're there yet. This pattern might have been formed here. But that impulse is 33. What's 33 from where we are? Market capitalization of $24 trillion. Whoa, there's no way that's going to happen. When a currency becomes unstable, when you experience hyperinflation, your inflation rates are what kills the currency, right? The dollar itself still has the same physical form. It serves the same purpose. If you lit it on fire, it'll burn just as fast, regardless of what it's valued at. The dollars that we are accustomed to using are going to be collapsed. And when that occurs, hyperinflation can be up to 300,000% per year. This will be a time of abundance. I'm convinced of that. This will be a time of abundance. But you do not want to keep holding on to this stuff and expect to trade it out for fiat, because it won't do you any good. You will want to exchange this for something that goes up in value as well. Because a 3,300% increase in market capitalization will certainly increase the size of your pocketbook, but you are fighting against inflation. You will not experience the same thing with metals. So this is why we have a multifaceted approach to handling this great reset, the strategies, the financial strategies that we have. Some of it's going to be digital. Some of it's going to be metal. Some of it's going to be real estate. And that they will all have a flow to them, and you're going to be moving things from sector to sector as that money flows, as the currencies flow in different directions. You're going to want to put your money where the money's going. Definitely don't be reactive. This is the gold chart. And let's just remember, that was just in 2023. Gold is up 126%. If you had gold in 2023, it's more than doubled in value. but it'll still just buy you the same stuff. That's the key. It's a hedge. Bitcoin is the digital gold. It will act as a hedge as well, and it will also amplify in volume simply because of the sheer volume of market capitalization that's going into digital assets. That even this will be fought against with the inflation. And I kind of have a sneaky suspicion that the cryptos are going to look good and there will be abundance. But people are still going to do the same thing that they've been doing with the Dow Jones this whole time. Saying, look at how much better things are getting. Not realizing that the economy has actually retracted 50% of its value during that time.
And this is all due to inflation?
Yeah. Because the gold is the standard. It's kind of, well, that's why it's considered to be God's currency, because it's the standard by which you determine the value of things throughout history. So since it's an actual currency that maintains its purchasing power, we can verifiably make the assertion that the US economy is in a downward spiral, and that the deception that they've made is that it's worth something in dollars. That's how they're able to keep people in the dark. That's how they're able to ensure that people continue, tuning into their reality TV show that's being delivered to them in the palms of their hands. Zoa, I see
Question,
you
you
in
said,
there.
you just said it. What is it that's they're keeping? You just made a phrase that they're saying
Hash
that it
that.
has value. Are you talking about they're saying that the currency has value, or that they're saying, I just missed
Oh yeah,
a
what
little?
they're doing, the chart, whenever we hear, oh, look at how much better the economy is going, and it's kind of like what they did with the Epstein files. When it's at the peak of the Epstein file attention, uh arresting the when the Epstein files had arrested the most attention is when Pam Bondi had to say, yeah, but look at the Dow Jones is at 50,000. They keep going back to its value in dollars because
Okay.
that's how they can maintain the deception that the economy has actually deteriorated 50%.
Okay, so it's when you were saying that they're saying it has value, that they're making it look like it has value. It is the Dow Jones.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
great. Thank you.
It is that. Yes, thank you. I know it's tough, and I might have to make the background a little bit brighter so that little watermark gets more visible. Let's do that right now. Scales, watermark, ticker, and I just bring it up. There. That's a little brighter, eh? Yeah, US 30. That's a little bit more
Oh,
bright.
I see. Okay.
Yes, that is the back. Yeah, so I know it's like I forget to say, oh, there's silver. Oh, there's gold. Here's Bitcoin. But I'll make sure. Oh, Gary, you got your hand up. Go ahead.
I know this is fairly elementary question, but when you're saying US 30, are you just referring to US dollar, or is how US 30 and Dow Jones US dollar? I don't get to distinguish.
That's
I
that's
checked.
really good. They're synonymous. US 30 is the short version that we use to describe the Dow Jones Average Industrial Index. Dow Jones Average Industrial Index takes the top 30 companies, and yeah, and so this is an index of the value of the top 30 companies in America. Another one that's out there, and this is another common chart that people look at, and that is the SP 500, Standard and Poor. So it's not the Dow Jones. This is the Standard and Poor. And Standard and Poor, they rate the top 500 companies. And you can see it behaves quite a bit differently. It doesn't have the same type of price action because it's a little bit more spread out, shall we say.
Mhm.
So yeah, US 30 is synonymous with Dow Jones Average Industrial Index, and the US 30 is more closely related to the value of the US dollar on international markets. When you're looking at Forex and you want to know which direction the US dollar is going to go compared to the euro, you look at the US 30 because it gives you that representation, a clear, crystal clear, and very prominently accurate representation of the value of the US economy, which is what is reflected in the US currency. Think of it as there's the US currency, which is the stock for the United States of America. The US 30 takes the individual altcoins, stock of those companies on the stock market. Does that help?
Yes, not fully comprehended, but I'll relate deeper later.
Yeah, and it might take some time too. Just remember US 30. If I'm saying US 30, I'm also identifying, just using US 30 for short, identifying it as this is the Dow Jones. One and the same. Ethereum, we're still seeing that energy buildup. It's dropped down since yesterday after we tested that. Let's move this. I don't need this here. Come back down to test the lower trend line. It's an encouraging price action. Midnight, still bouncing off of all these lows. ADA, still crawling upwards since that big low there. This low definitely came back down again. See what happens. Next impulse. You probably find some resistance again around 25 cents US. I'm not going to go through the rest. Q's and A's. Let's go to the AMA session or Ask Me Anything session.
It continues to feel like a wait. Like
Yeah.
we're really waiting to see what's going to unfold more clearly in the Middle East and the rest of it.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll go through this here, but interrupt me if you got questions. This article, I did a quick scan over it yesterday, and I felt it would be good to just address because we've been talking about it, especially when the oil prices started going up. Then it was like, I gotta watch this now because the Japanese yen it's not fared well. We've talked about it, how it just keeps on inflating. It does not get better against the US dollar, and that was prominently let go back in here, like 2021. In the summer, I think it was in the summer of 2021, if I remember correctly. The Japanese bank just said, yeah, no, we're screwing you over. We have a currency that's worth nothing, and we're going to have to print to oblivion, so you're not going to have any purchasing power with our currency anymore. They literally just came right out and said it. And since that time, it's lost 43% of its value on the international markets. Basically, took a little bit longer for it to do that than it did for the US 30, the Dow Jones, to lose 50% of its value. This took a little bit longer. But I mean, that's terrible. And so the point of the matter, there it is. 2 years ago, he wrote a research piece at the time and left many in utter disbelief. A peek into the future. USD Jippy, they call it. The USD Jippy is the how they reference that, but that is referencing the currency pair between the US dollar and the Japanese yen. Road to 300, he's saying that it'll be 300 yen to get 1 US dollar. In that piece, I calculated what should have been the JPY fair exchange rate against the US dollar at that time based on the following concepts. Japan's debt would have continued to expand. Bank of Japan hiking rates would have meant a bigger need for money printing, adding even more debt into Japan's debt pile in order to allow Japan to keep servicing its debt. Inflation in Japan would have pushed the JBG, what is JGB? Can't remember. I think that's their bonds. Yields up, requiring even more debt monetization. Yeah, it would be bonds efforts by the BOJ, Bank of Japan. Because of never-ending money printing, inflation would have just been pushed even higher, creating a doom loop Japan could not escape, and I explained in great detail a long time ago in explaining and simplifying the JPY counterintuitive doom loop. Fast forward 2 more years, and not only has the situation not improved, but of course worsened against all rosy government projections that are constantly so dead wrong. Now, add the 2026 oil crisis into the situation. First of all, why is Japan uniquely exposed to an oil shock? Japan is one of the most energy import dependent major economies. That matters. Because an oil shock is not just a price move, it's an external tax that Japan must pay in foreign currencies. Remember how I was talking about renegotiation of energy contracts? It's going to be because of this right here. Countries do not want to exchange their currency for US dollars to go buy oil. Why? Because their currencies are getting in worse condition if they're not producing energy. If their nations do not export energy, they're hooped. It's like economic warfare more than anything. Current account channel slips fast. When crude and LNG prices rise, another energy, Japan's import bill rises immediately, while export volumes do not automatically rise enough to offset it. The trade balance can swing from surplus to deficit quickly, pushing the overall current account down significantly, and that reduces the steady structural flow of foreign currency into Japan, and forces Japanese corporates and utilities to pay more USD to pay for energy. More USD demand, less USD supply. Energy is a high pass-through input in Japan's CPI. Japan imports the marginal barrel. Higher oil raises gasoline, electricity, and transport costs, and then this bleeds into food and manufactured goods through logistics and packaging cost rate. Boy, it's a good thing Alberta gave up, or Canada is giving up all the resources to China. I mean, otherwise, China would be getting all of this inflation and their gasoline and electricity and transport costs. That would really go through the roof. It's a good thing Canada was so generous in just giving it to China. You know, we don't need to have stability in our economy. Nah. What do we need it for?
Why do we need cheap heating sources and
Yeah.
fuel sources?
No.
vehicles?
You know, that's such a capitalistic view. We need to be more communist and give the wealth away to communists. Tell them getting spicy. Policy reaction function is asymmetrical. If the Bank of Japan is still constrained by public debt dynamics, it cannot comfortably hike rates to defend the currency without raising the government's interest burden and forcing fiscal or monetary offsets. It's a funny thing about interest rates. When they go up, sure, you're attracting foreign investors, but now your locals can't pay their bills. Secondly, why Japan's SPR is not the macro buffer people think it is. Japan's strategic petroleum reserve helps with physical supply continuity and short-term disruptions. It's not designed to and cannot neutralize a multi-quarter price shock. Most reserves are like 30 days max. That's what they call a reserve. I remember the first time I was introduced to the concept of a reserve tank was on my dad's old Honda trike. You'd be burning around on that thing, and if the fuel went out, it's okay. Just flip this switch and it'll go to the reserve tank. But that only got you, like, that was lucky to get you home. Just Gary's like, yep, I remember those. Yes, well, Japan's reserve tank doesn't really help them that much. You've seen Japan, right? I mean, that island is basically a great big city.
Jerry can in the back of a pickup truck.
Yeah. Yeah. Where did I leave off? Oh, okay, yeah, here we go. Oil is expensive globally per month. Drawing SPR barrels does not make the marginal global barrel cheap. It can smooth the delivery logistics, prevent panic. It's like a buffer. It's like, oh, I got shot, but then it's over, right? And then it's over. It cannot withstand the deluge of expensive oil that is already there. Just like a tsunami. Currently, the maximum it does not reset Japan's import price. Even if the headline stock number looks large, economy runs on flow, not stock. Maximum daily drawdown rate and distribution constraints mean that the strategic reserve can replace only a portion of normal consumption for a limited time. Currently, the maximum drawdown of is estimated to be 1.7 million barrels of oil per day, while Japan consumes 3 million. So their maximum drawdown is 1.7 million barrels, but their consumption is 3 million barrels. So they got less than 2 days
The maths
of reserves.
are not mathing.
Nope. No matter what, Japan will be facing 1.3 million barrels a day oil supply shortage. Furthermore, let's never forget that Japan imports virtually 100% because they don't produce it. They can't. That's not where they are on the planet. They're not the they would have to go so far offshore that they would increase the price of oil to the degree that nobody would want to buy it because it's just too expensive to go get. It's just not where they are on the planet.
So then does it not
Japanese-
make sense that they make contracts with like Russia and I guess China directly?
Yeah, and China only because China now has Canada's sources. But that China would have been hooped. They would have been at the mercy of the Middle East again, right? They needed to diversify and they needed to become what's called a lending nation because they're part of the BRICS. Remember BRICS? Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. Those countries are all what are making up. It's a basket of currencies that they're using to create another standard. They want to create another reserve currency is what they want to do. So yeah, China had to get something in the lines of energy. Otherwise, Russia would be the only one to have that dominance.
So, what's Trump's opinion of Carney doing this agreement with China?
That's a really good question, Gary. One of the reasons why Trump is doing what he's doing is, well, you know what? I don't want to speak too much on what he thinks of it. Let's go back and do a little bit of a history expose on Carney. His job is to decimate corporations in preparation for their being taken over. That's his job, his specialty. BlackRock has been hiring Brookfield to do that for a long time. But see, he had to get good at it. Remember, it's like anything else. If you're going to get good at something, you got to start little. Carney's first big job, where he broke through his growing pains of getting things going, was handling the bankruptcy of Donald J. Trump. Back in the day. I think it was late 80s. It's like an $80 million bankruptcy. So Carney and Trump go way back. They would have had their cell phone numbers during that time. They would have been talking to each other probably even daily for weeks as that was being settled. Carney's job is always to decimate a country. Now it's a country. It's because it's just a bigger corporation. That's his job. I think what he's doing is that he's preparing Canada for whoever's buying it next. And he doesn't care who it is. It's not his job. He doesn't care. All he cares about whether or not he gets his cut on the business side of things. He's just running a business. You thought that election was real? Nah. There was nothing real about that election. He had to be in that position because he's doing his job. You know, he did it in Britain too. Just before he was in Canada, he was in Britain. And he did the same thing there. In fact, the members of parliament in Britain, they still reference him. They nicknamed him. They call him Mark Carnage because of what he did to their financial system. Yeah. That's his nickname. So he's over here just doing his job, and he doesn't care who's buying Canada after it's decimated. I think it's just, the fact that there are enough companies that have established themselves. Did you know there's not a single mining company, like all of them are by proxy, right? But all of the mining companies, every last gold mine in Canada is owned directly by a Chinese corporation, which in China means it's the government of China because that's how their system works, right? You're allowed to start a business, but the business becomes the property of the state and you're allowed to run the business. That's how it works. It's communism with extra steps. So they own everything going on, all of the operations and productivity in natural resources in Canada. It only makes sense that they would be the next buyer. Trump is looking for energy dominance so that his dollar can maintain its dominance on the international world stage. And I think the whole talk about Canada becoming 51st state was simply a way to get more conversation going on around that topic. You take a look at how much attention the Alberta separatist movement has within the Trump administration. Why do you think that is? Because whatever it was, yeah, this is his second year, right? Yeah, he took office last year before. Yeah, I'm getting confused. When it was basically
having fun.
Yeah, time flies. But right after he was inaugurated, he came out with a 51st state language pattern. And that's what spurred on what we have today as a separatist movement. You take a look at the separatist movement and listen to all the garbage that they produce for propaganda. It is all geared towards the glorification of Trump, the savior of the world. All of it. So I see the two forces. I see China being like, yes, we've got all of the companies and the industry. That's awesome. And then there's Trump saying, yeah, but we need some of that energy too because we got to support our dollar. And they're going to be button heads. They're definitely going to be button heads. But Carney, Trump looks at Carney as he's just that guy that's handling the bankruptcy of Canada. So does that help? It's kind of like like you know about a big business deal going on and you'd like to get in on that business deal, and then there's this little peon that you see in the news. He's kind of like the spokesperson for the corporation that you're trying to vie for. That's Carney to Trump. Yeah, I think what happens is that, and I'm just as guilty of it. But we glorify these people thinking that they have high rank. And what does Trump think about it? In the end, I don't think he thinks much. It's like
into our need, our desire as a human for someone to save us.
Yeah.
Someone to protect us.
Yeah. Somehow our striving for that peace and happiness and that sense of home that we know God has for us, our pursuit for that has the downfall is that we sometimes think someone else can bring it to us.
Is that our desire as humans, or is that our arrested development as children? Parentified, that we parentify things, or that we are conditioned to do that. We're conditioned to see the corporations as parents, as sources, so government, authority, all that stuff. It's like, it seems like the more that we lean into our own agency, then the less that we have that.
I agree.
I
And I
just, I
think
think
that
you're raising a really great thing, Audrey Lynn. I'm not actually challenging that. I just feel like I'm taking it further in my
yeah.
thinking of like, because it's, I don't know, I just keep looking into like, what are we actually capable of as humans? What is our actual capacity as humans? And we've been really, that whole metaphor that people use of the elephant with the rope tied around its leg that's 3 feet wide and it goes around a pole. And then you take the rope off and it still stays around the pole. I don't know if that actually happens, but that's a metaphor, an analogy that gets used a lot. And I see humans like that too. We've been conditioned in a certain way, that even if someone comes and goes, actually, there's no rope, you're free. We
Mhm.
still, yeah, we live out these, not only family or parental patterns, but dysfunctional family patterns, dysfunctional parental patterns. So we're looking to
That
be
reminds
safe.
me of a story I heard some time back about a research study that was done with cats. And there was a group of cats that was raised uh, where they could only see upright lines. That's all they could see. And then another set of cats where all they could see was horizontal lines. And when they switched the cats, so the horizontal lines went to the upright lines, and the vertical lines went to the horizontal lines. The cats kept on running into things because they couldn't see. They couldn't see the vertical lines. They couldn't see the horizontal lines, even though they were there. That's what they were programmed to do. So I have an agreement with you, Zoa, in that I don't know if it's parentified, but definitely programmed
Yeah.
that our world is supposed to look in a very particular way, and it depends on where we are on the planet, as to the type of programming that we are a part of, indoctrinated into.
Subjected to, yeah. No, that's a powerful. Whew. I'm going to start looking for other kinds of lines. Diagonal and squiggly. All kinds.
Yes, open your mind. We Audrey Lynn and I we've watched this. We watch Rick and Morty, and it's crass and the humor's gross and all the stuff. But there's some powerful, even scriptural lessons that are taught throughout the story arc of that series. And there is an episode where there's this one of the characters, he becomes unable to speak more words than simply open your mind. And so that's what it boils down to. We have to do that, right?
Well, and not only our minds, but our senses. Our senses
Yes.
have been
Yeah.
limited, or what we can see, what we can hear, what we can smell, what we can, or even just the bridgeway to go to our bodies as a signal system. We are trained very much to go to the mind.
Yep. I want to bring up a word here. We're going to do just a preview of something that we're going to be covering on Wednesday, because I love language. And when it comes down to it, language is what creates our experience. And so it's important that we have command of the language. All. To grow, nourish, as in altimeter, altitude, alto, alumnus. Also, the source of Greek, aldeno, to grow, strengthen, to feed, to get well, nurturing, fostering, to grow up. German, alt, old. To nourish. And then the next one, ta. The natural, infantile sound of gratitude. The reason why we're going to be going down that rabbit hole is primarily, nope, not this word, but I'm going to go ahead and search. It is short, alta is short for alternative. The other, purporting to be superior choice to what is in general use. From the word alter, the other. What's native? Natural. The natural other choice. We have been conditioned with vertical lines, some of us, and some of us have been conditioned with horizontal lines. And so, yeah, like children, we believe that there must be some paternal entity that is going to save us, that's going to take care of us. And that it is up to us to grow up to our potential.
Yeah, I guess a more concise way to say what I was feeling around there is that there are designs and agendas to keep us in a childlike state. I don't mean childlike like the whimsy and the fun and the joy and the
No,
energy, but to keep
controllable.
us in a childlike dependent state.
Yes. Yes. Naturally, I think that we are, I say people like us, from with the values that we have.
Mm-hmm.
I think it is only natural that we have a different option, and that we are always seeking that. We're always striving to find out what is another way we can do this. How else can we reach that potential? How else can we, Terence McKenna said, we are like caterpillars contemplating pupation. and that eventually we must say, no longer will I chew on cabbage leaves, no longer will I crawl upon my belly on the underside of nature. It will transform and become something completely new. And that childlike consciousness that we must be taken care of by somebody else, or else we're not going to survive, is exactly that temptation that we succumb to simply because looks like vertical lines. I grew up that way. Yeah, it makes sense.
And you must be wrong because I grew up with horizontal lines and my lines are right.
Yes, and if you don't vote for my vertical lines, your horizontal lines, I'm gonna start slapping them around. Yeah.
And then we come to the ancient classic parable of the Sneetches. Dr.
Go
Seuss's
on.
The Sneetches, where it's not only are there the vertical lines people and the horizontal lines people, but you can be switched. Do you know that? Do you know the
Oh,
Dr.
no.
Seuss and the
We
Sneetches?
we need to do a book study.
Oh my gosh, it's so, I've thought of it so much in these 5, 6 years.
Yeah.
I can only paraphrase it because it's been decades, but
What's
there's
the name of it? Is it
the
the Sneetches?
Sneetches. I think it's just the Sneetches.
Sneetches on beaches.
Yeah. Um, so there's these yellow beings, funny, Dr. Seuss type beings, and there's somebody that comes to town who has a machine that will put a star on your belly. And so certain people go through and they get a star put on their belly. And then it's otherizing, right? It's like some people have stars and some people don't. And so then everybody tries to get the stars on their belly. I don't know if that's if he's got a series of Sneetches. I don't know. Because he might have gone on and done more with the Sneetches. I don't know. So then the guy comes back through and has a machine that takes the stars off your belly. So it's all this thing about trying to distinguish yourself from other people, or capitalizing on that impulse. At some point, nobody knows who anybody is, because it's like, do you have your star on or off? So it's like they always talk about stars on thars, Sneetches and the stars on thars. Anyway, to me, it's such a analogy of like powers that be, or capitalizing entities being able to just shift people, like, no, this is the cool thing now, and the other people are bad. And then, you can literally end up on the other side and be in that same conflict. Or, yeah, there you go. There's the original
The
Sneetches.
original Sneetches. Okay.
This conversation reminds me of the LGBTQ rainbow community,
Yeah.
where 5-10 years ago it was uber cool to be trans, to be gay, to be identify as a tree stump, whatever. And I feel that is swinging the other direction, where you don't see all the piercings and jewelry in young people's faces, I'm projecting. But yeah, terribly othering to not be a part of that community. And they claim that I would be othering them.
But that's the point, is that the othering goes to me, that's the point, that the othering goes all directions. And you can find even within those communities, like I'm thinking decades ago, it's like if you didn't fit a certain way, then you were kind of outed from the lesbian community, or and it's not limited to that. I'm just saying we do that all across the board. And now we do it on social media without the human contact part. And so people are just unleashed in viciousness and bonding over putting down other people, whether it's, sometimes it's someone just reports an incident they had on the road or something. This person cut me off, and all these people pile on and go, that blah, 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 that, all kinds of name calling. And like they're bonding through
trauma.
Yeah, that's at the root of it. Yeah. Anyway, a story for our time. It is truly a story for our time.
Look forward to going through it. 70 pages. I need to get going, so maybe we'll do it for market analysis on Thursday. Everybody have a good rest of the day.
Thank you so much.
Indeed.
Great.
Indeed. Wonderful. Wonderful conversation.